12 years ago, I had to make a life-changing decision. When I found out what I would have to go through to come out successfully on the other side, my imagination kicked in and it went wild. After years of being an athletic person, I was stopped in my tracks, literally. And anytime I'm about to go through an airport or other metal detector, I have to give the security people a heads up before I set off the alarm. I will explain. Like most kids, I grew up playing softball, playing hide and seek, and just loving to be outside. As I grew up, I hiked a couple of mountains, skied some cold and winding ski trails, and went on some very long bike rides and walks. I took for granted how resilient my body was when I was very young. Unfortunately, in high school, I tore in the spring of 1973 the cartilage in my right knee when trying out for the women's softball team. I was wearing rubber-cleated shoes. They were not as high-end as I wish I could have afforded, and certainly not as nice as ones that a young athlete can get in a sporting goods store today. My orthopedic surgeon told me that it was those cleats that most likely damaged my cartilage. He was not specific as to how. What I understood is that running and walking in those cleats did not provide any evenly distributed support that is so critical to your joints. Nonetheless, I had to wait until I got a job with insurance coverage to have the surgery done. About a year later, while working for a Boston insurance company, I scheduled and underwent my surgery where the surgeon removed the torn part of the cartilage. I was able to take a leave from work for a month. There was no way I could have commuted with the huge ace bandage surrounding my knee. I was instructed to use crutches and to not put any weight on my knee. I went through physical therapy and was finally able to go back to work. My life went on but was very different. There was no more skiing or hiking or riding my bike on long trips. When it rained, my right knee ached. I had to take 8 aspirins a day, which bothered my stomach. I began to gain weight and became increasingly unhappy with my life. I am a positive person and try to have a positive outlook. But inside I knew I would eventually develop arthritis in that knee. And that is what eventually happened. 37 years later, a rash developed around the right knee, which never got any better, no matter what kind of cream I used. I was embarrassed to show my knee because it looked like a really bad case of poison ivy. It was so itchy and red. But that was not the half of it. I began falling as I walked across the room. Once I banged my face against the toilet seat and a huge bruise developed. Another time, I dropped a lighted candle as I was walking past my husband's recliner. Thank goodness it was a soy candle. The wax did not burn the leather chair, and the wax easily peeled off without damage. I was so lucky, but I had enough. I made a call for an appointment the next Monday and was seen by an orthopedic surgeon a few weeks later. I was so lucky to have the same surgeon who was one of the surgeons on hand at the Summer Olympics for the gold medal women's soccer team. I remember when I was recuperating after the knee replacement surgery, I would see him on the television in Europe sticking his face and smiling into the camera. I told him, during my 3-week follow-up appointment, that he was such a ham. He smiled that same smile back at me. A few weeks before the knee replacement surgery, I had to walk with a large brace on my leg. This would separate the knee joint to ease the pain and to help with the falling. It worked pretty well. I was able to take a trip with my family to New York City. My husband took a picture of my knee and its brace next to a street-level Bubba Gump shrimp sign in Times Square. I sent the picture to my friends and coworkers with the caption "Run Forrest, run." Everyone got a kick out of that. I mentioned earlier that my imagination began to go wild. Let me explain why. I began watching knee replacement videos and videos from actual patients. I found some really graphic surgeries. I didn't dare click on these. I did watch some animated videos, which were extremely helpful in my understanding of what the surgery involved. The testimonies from actual patients were emotional to watch because they were hoping that the surgery would ultimately be successful. Back then, the success rate was high, with more than 90% of replacement knees still functioning as I write this story. In my case, the surgery went as follows. The surgeon gained access to my right knee joint and kneecap via a 6-inch incision. The flaps of skin were pulled back and stabilized on the operating table so that they were clear from the surgery site. The surgeon also stabilized the muscles and ligaments to keep them clear of the bone cutting that was about to be done. He used a precision saw, that moves extremely quickly back and forth to cut and flatten the leg bones at the joint. These are the femur or top part and the tibia, the bottom part, and any cartilage. The femur is also cut with the saw to resemble the rounded shape of the femur end. For me, the surgeon also had to replace my kneecap with a component because the arthritis pretty much destroyed it. Flattening and shaping the bones also enables the placement of the upper and lower prosthetic parts, which include the bottom plate and the top customized component that resembles an actual femur bone. Before any more cutting is done, the surgeon uses trial parts to ensure proper range of motion after extending the leg. They have to be positively sure that both legs end up even after all is said and done. Finally, a drill is used to cut holes into the femur and tibia surfaces, which enables securing the replacement components to the bones. Before the components are permanently secured with screws, the areas are covered with a glue made of bone cement. This cement is used because it provides immediate stability of the components to the bones. There is also a component made of a tough and light resin or polyethylene inlay placed between the femur and tibia. This ensures smooth operation when bending the knee. The surgery was completed and the incision was stapled closed to heal. Those would be later removed. My knee replacement weighs 1.5 pounds, which is considered large and consists of titanium. I tell everyone today when I ski that my knee makes me feel bionic when I lean on my right knee to turn on my skis. After the 2.5 hour surgery, I woke up in my hospital room and immediately put my hands on my right knee to feel the large bandage. There was what looked like a hose coming from the knee joint, which was there to drain fluid. I was in a lot of pain and was prescribed oxycodone. I took that for the first day, but asked for something that was not a narcotic. I also had to take other medications like Celebrex. But the worst part of the medication was heparin, an anti-blood clot, blood-thinning medicine that my husband had to inject into my abdomen. Let me tell you, I would feel immediately nauseous. That had to go on for 2 weeks. I pleaded with the doctor to please give me something else. He refused and said a clot could develop and be extremely serious. I made it through 1 week and 5 days and stopped taking it. A side effect that also occurred was the constipation. I could not wait to take a laxative, which eventually helped move my bowels after 5 days. Horrible experience. I would be able to go back to work in 2 weeks. At that time, I drove a 1997 VW Beetle with a standard transmission. As I felt better, I would hobble over to my car, using my crutches and sit in the driver's seat. I would gradually flex my foot and knee enough to be able to shift the car. When I finally got back to work, I would use my crutches to hobble up the 12 stairs to my office on the 2nd floor. The building did not have an elevator. As I sat at my desk, I rested my knee on a chair beside me to elevate my leg. I used ice packs to help with the pain. This went on for another 2 weeks until I was finally able to ditch the crutches. My surgery was in July, and by September, I was outside again during my workdays to take my walk around the block for my lunch breaks. I was sure to have my cell phone with me, so if I needed help getting back to the office, I could call a coworker for help. In the end, I was back on the slopes in January in Vermont at the Killington Ski Resort with my son. There have been a lot of advancements in knee replacement surgery. My husband went through a partial knee replacement a few years after my total knee replacement. In his case, a robotic arm, guided by a surgeon, was used to repair his left knee. His recovery time was only 2 weeks compared to my 2.5 months. Today, in 2024, robotic surgery is still used and longer-lasting joints have been developed. In the end, I support knee replacement surgery because of the improvement to one's quality of life. I was totally scared when I was first told that this would be my only option. But doing the research and asking a lot of questions familiarized me with the procedure and what to expect. I hope you found my story helpful and interesting. I am so happy I went through the process and came out great on the other side. Finally, here's a gift my son and his girlfriend gave me. It is a statue of a greyhound wearing an ace bandage on its right front leg. I love these dogs and will cherish this clever and thoughtful gift forever. Thanks so very much for watching and listening to my experience with knee replacement surgery.